The agricultural revolution of ancient Mesopotamia. Imagine a vast, flat horizon where the sun rises over two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Long before cities reached for the clouds, the earth here was a canvas of wild grasses and silty mud. This is Mesopotamia, the land between rivers, where humanity first decided to stop wandering and start planting. The transition was not a sudden explosion, but a slow, rhythmic shift that lasted thousands of years, as quiet and steady as the flow of the river itself. The foundation of this revolution was the soil, the fine golden silt carried down from the northern mountains. Each spring, the rivers would swell, overflowing their banks and depositing a fresh, nutrient-rich layer of mud across the plains. As the waters receded, they left behind a damp, fertile cradle. Ancient farmers watched this cycle with patient eyes, learning to predict the exact moment when the mud was soft enough to receive a seed, but firm enough to hold it. Then came the domestication of wild grains, emmer wheat and barley. These were not the uniform crops of today, but hardy, wild grasses with brittle ears. The process of selection was tedious. Year after year, farmers saved the seeds of the plants that stayed on the stalk the longest. Think of the rhythmic movement of hands sorting seeds, one by one, 1,000 times over, selecting for a future they would never see. A slow evolution guided by human patience. Water management was the greatest challenge. The sun in Mesopotamia was harsh, drying the mud into a hard crust within days. To survive, the people invented irrigation. They dug small, shallow channels with wooden tools, leading the river water away from its natural path and into the thirsty fields. Imagine the sound of a wooden shovel striking the damp earth, over and over, as a farmer carves a path for the water to follow. A slow and steady expansion of life into the desert. With irrigation came the need for dikes and levees. These were massive earthen mounds built to contain the floods. Construction was a collective, repetitive labor. Thousands of baskets of earth were carried by hand, dumped onto the mounds, and packed down with heavy wooden poles. The constant thumping of wood against earth, the slow rising of the levees, and the steady breath of the workers created a hum of progress that lasted for generations. The invention of the plow further transformed the landscape. At first, it was a simple, forked branch pulled by humans. Later, oxen were harnessed to heavy wooden frames. Imagine the slow, heavy stride of the oxen as they pull the wooden blade through the soil, turning over the earth in long, straight furrows. The smell of fresh earth, the creaking of the wooden yoke, and the steady pace of the animals under the afternoon sun were the sights and sounds of a changing world. Seed drills were another marvel of Mesopotamian engineering. A funnel was attached to the plow, allowing seeds to be dropped precisely into the furrow as the oxen moved forward. This reduced waste and ensured an even harvest. The steady clink of seeds hitting the wooden funnel, falling one by one into the dark earth, was a repetitive rhythm of precision, a technological whisper in the vast, open fields. Harvest time was a period of intense but rhythmic labor. Using sickles made of baked clay or flint blades set into wooden handles, the farmers would cut the stalks of grain. The repetitive swish of the blade against the dry stalks, the bending and rising of the harvesters, and the gathering of golden bundles were the signs that the cycle was nearing its end. Each motion was deliberate, each bundle a testament to a year of quiet patience. Threshing followed the harvest. The grain was laid out on a hard, flat surface called a threshing floor. Oxen would be driven in circles, pulling a heavy wooden sledge over the stalks to separate the grain from the chaff. The constant circular motion of the oxen, the crunching of the dry stalks under the sledge, and the rising dust created a hypnotic atmosphere of repetition, a slow grinding away of the day. Winnowing was the final step of the process. Farmers would use wooden forks to toss the threshed mixture into the air. The gentle breeze would carry away the lighter chaff, while the heavier grain fell back to the ground. Imagine the repetitive motion of tossing and catching, the sight of golden grain falling like rain, and the quiet rustle of the chaff blowing away in the wind. It was a slow, airy dance of separation. Storage required the building of massive granaries. These were thick-walled mud brick structures designed to keep the grain cool and dry. Inside, the air was still and smelled of dry earth and stored life. The grain was poured into large clay jars, sealed with bitumen or clay plugs. The sound of grain flowing into the jars, a soft, dry hiss, was the final sound of the agricultural cycle, a promise of security against the lean months to come. The surplus of food allowed for the growth of specialists. People began to focus on pottery, weaving, and metallurgy. The slow turning of a potter's wheel, the rhythmic clacking of a wooden loom, and the steady breath of a bellows in a forge became the new sounds of the Mesopotamian afternoon. The agricultural revolution was not just about food. It was about the slow crafting of civilization itself, one repetitive motion at a time. Temples grew alongside the fields. The ziggurats, massive stepped pyramids of mud brick, reached toward the heavens. They were centers of administration and ritual, where the grain was counted and the gods were thanked. Imagine the slow climb up the stairs of a ziggurat, the heavy silence of the mud brick walls, and the vast view of the irrigated fields stretching to the horizon, a monument to human labor and organized thought. Writing emerged from the need to track the grain. Simple clay tokens became cuneiform signs, pressed into wet clay tablets. The slow, deliberate pressing of a reed stylus into the clay was the birth of history. Each mark was a record of the harvest, a silent testament to the fields and the workers. The dry smell of a clay tablet library, the heavy stillness of the archives, and the weight of history in your hands are the final artifacts of this revolution. Now, let the image of the golden fields of Mesopotamia fade. The rivers continue their slow, eternal flow. The grain is safe. The sun is setting over the desert, casting long, peaceful shadows. Your mind is as heavy as a clay tablet, and as calm as the waters of the canal. The day of labor is finished. The history is written. The world is at rest. Sleep now, layer by layer, into the deep, fertile silence of the ancient past.